Good morning.
Good morning, Rich.
Could you tell me your name?
TJ.
Could you spell it?
T-E-E, not T-E-A, but T-E-E-J-A-Y.
Okay,
But that's my street name.
good enough.
If you want my real name, I can give you my real name. But
You can say whatever you wish.
yeah, but I go by TJ. Yeah,
You're homeless?
and I am homeless. And well, I don't really like the word homeless. I'm houseless is probably a better word because wherever I lay my head, or wherever I'm camping, or wherever I spend the night, that's my home, and I treat it as my home. I respect it. I keep it clean, and it's something that I've, always tried to concentrate on. This is my home, wherever it is, wherever I lay my head. So, yep. So I use the word houseless, not homeless.
So you try to take care of your areas?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we're as a human race, we're not doing a very good job of being stewards of the land. I mean, we're poisoning the oceans, we're poisoning the ground and stuff. So every little bit that each one of us can do to police after ourselves is, one step further and keep, cleaning this planet up. Absolutely.
Right. Well, how long have you been homeless?
Let's see. Since 2006 is actually when I was completely homeless. I had been couch surfing before then, staying with friends and stuff like that. So I didn't really, think of myself as being houseless. But about 2006.
How did you become homeless or houseless?
It was a lot of different factors, economics, health-wise, basically not being able to perform the duties that, you could do when you were 21. You get older, your body slows down, it starts breaking down and stuff, and your mind still, is 21, but your body's not 21. And, there was some substance abuse, absolutely, alcohol and some drugs, and it all, it all started with just a social use, and then after that it just escalated and stuff. So basically it was on a downward spiral, and that pretty much contributed to it. Absolutely.
Well, you don't look like you're using anymore.
No, I've been coming this Labor Day weekend, 2017. I'll be clean and sober 6 years.
It's great.
So, yeah, it is. It's I'm proud of that. It's been a real struggle. Like we were discussing before, I only have a few vices left, and eating's one of them. I've given up, the smoking and the chewing tobacco and stuff, and yeah, it's should have done it a long time ago, but that's where it is.
So what are your goals?
My goals, I try not to set a lot of goals, long-term goals, because when you don't achieve those goals, it's such a what's the word I want to use? It's depressing to set long-term goals. So I set myself short-term goals. Stay healthy, stay well-fed, and being houseless, a lot of people don't realize it, but it's a full-time job. If you really apply yourself to keeping yourself healthy, fed, your hygiene, and just staying educated, there's a lot of stuff that we take for granted when we're in a house that when you're out on the street, it's a whole different story. Finding a restroom is chronically impossible. Businesses, and I understand their side of it, but businesses, they're most of the time their restrooms are for their customers. Public restrooms are far and few between, and some of the bigger cities are addressing that, but smaller communities don't have the funds to put in a Portland loo or that type of thing. So yeah, it's a full-time job, absolutely.
Okay. Are you signed up for homeless services?
Yes, I signed up for, let's see, well, define homeless services as in housing and that type of thing. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, there's various agencies that are set up to supposed to help people with various issues that are in various positions, as in homelessness, mental health issues, drug
Yes,
and
yeah,
alcohol addictions,
yeah,
various
yeah.
things like that.
I've used certain agencies through the years and stuff, and a lot of the agencies, it seems like you're just another participant in the hamster wheel. I mean, they put you in the system, and it's tough. It's tough. You know, it's a perpetual cycle, and you miss manager, but with the turnover in this local agency here, I'm kind of a hybrid right now. So yeah, I have a case manager part of the time.
Of any assistance?
Actually, I do a lot of it, the footwork on my own, and like we were discussing earlier, this if you talk to your fellow street person, you learn a lot more. We're peer to peer. I mean, we get a lot of information from our our family that's out on the street, our support groups out on the street, and most of the time you don't get that type of support from an agency. You really don't.
I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it might even be nefarious from these agencies not wanting people to progress. It's just they keep them in this perpetual cycle because that's what the funding, I guess, provides, or the funding encourages, and no fault of their own, maybe.
So basically, humanity goes out of it when dollars come into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's that as an agency, your number one on the client, whatever the agency is running into, the client comes first. You have to take care of the client. That's your business. You're not in the car business. You're not in the beer brewing business. You're in the people business. You've got to take care of the people. And that's not happening. Absolutely not happening. There's some good agencies out there that are trying, but it's not happening. And we can see the result. We're not as homeless or houseless. We're not the problem. We're the result of the problem. Absolutely, we're the result of the problem.
What do you see as a solution?
Well, it's a complicated issue. Absolutely a complicated issue. I think there's some good models out there from larger cities that smaller agencies can learn some best practices off of, but it's going to be a community involvement. It's got to be A to Z. You're not going to clean it up through enforcement, but you've got to have the police department involved. You have to have the churches involved. You have to have the agencies involved. You have to have it's got to be a community, and like you said, it's got to be a self-sustaining community. The community has to address the problem.
What steps do you take to accomplish that?
As a community,
Yes.
first I think you have to recruit people that are humanitarians. And you have to not recruit the people that are looking just at the bottom line. How can I make a bunch of money off of this? And that if it's the way the system's built, then we need to break the system and come up with a new system. Because other countries do it.
I fully agree.
Other countries do it, and they do it very efficiently. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. All you need to do is get on the internet, contact them, and they'll be glad to give you their template for free.
I,
This
I agree.
works. This template works. Now, will it work 100%? No. There's going to be a segment out there that will never come off the street. They just never will. But we can take that 80% segment and shrink it down to 1%. That 1% is going to live in the woods or whatever they want to do. Then we can really address that 1% when you've got the other 79% taken care of. Yeah, but the models are out there. It's just getting the right people in place to do that. And back to my point, they have to be humanitarians. They have to know that our number one focus is the client. And I've read a lot of mission statements that blah, 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 the client, this is our number one focus. And they just don't execute on the client. They execute on how does our building look, and do we have pastries out and coffee and stuff like that. You know, forget all that stuff. Worry about the client. All that other stuff will come later. Absolutely will come later.
Well, you know, they privatized the mental health system and the homelessness issue and the drug and alcohol issue.
Right,
And they've basically combined them all into one.
right.
Do you think that's the way to do it? A one-stop shop for everything? Or do you think that various issues need their own place?
The problem with putting it all into one pot is I think a lot of stuff gets lost. And the accountability's not there. When you have everything in one pot, you don't have the focus on this pot or that pot or that pot. It's all there, so stuff can get swept under the rugs or stuff not taken care of. So yeah, I don't know. It's like, back to my point, it's complicated. And I think combining all of that, it makes sense business-wise. And there is the paradox again, that it's not a business to make money. It's a business to heal people. To heal people, that's what it is. And you can't take that business philosophy into making the bottom line. We've got to make the bottom line into healing people. It doesn't work. They're polar opposites. They butt ahead. So yeah, that's yeah, you're right.
Does it give you any hope that some of the community is waking up and actually standing up to address some of these issues?
It does. It does. I think, and not just this local community, but I think nationally, the consensus is yes, we've got an issue. And when you go to the larger cities and see the houseless, homeless problem down there, it's epidemic. It's absolutely epidemic. And a lot of it's taken care of through enforcement. So if you have a tourist city and, you know, summertime comes and you get a lot of tourists, well, the police kind of herd all the homeless into one area so that, you know, then basically the tourists don't see them. San Diego's a great example of that. You know, they put all the services in one area, then all the homeless all congregate into that area, and then, you know, it's basically, well, we've taken care of them. So they're, you know, they're not seen by the general public. But more and more as the homeless issue, as they increase, you know, the numbers increase, that model doesn't work because they're overflowed. Those centers are overflowed, and those, you know, the homeless continue to flow back into the tourist areas, and then tourists are seeing it. So yeah, absolutely, I see that there's an awakening. Absolutely.
What do you personally see as a solution to some of these issues?
Oh God. You know, the model I saw that probably addresses it the best is getting people housed. Just, you've got to give an individual a place to not basically call his own, but he's got to be able to, if you want him to progress in you know, in society's norms, but if you want him to progress, You've got to give him a place where he can take a shower and he can get cleaned up and be able to make that next step. Because if you're living on the street and you want to make that step from the street to a job, it's almost impossible. It really is. Because you can't, well, I shouldn't say you can't, but when you go to work and you're not showered in the morning, people know that. They know that you haven't taken a shower, or you haven't shaved, or, you know, your personal hygiene and stuff. And it's hard to hold a job down like that. You know, they're sooner or later going to ask questions. Well, you know, you're not shaving this morning. Why didn't you shave? Well, you know, the McDonald's bathroom was broken, or Starbucks caught me shaving in their sink, or whatever type of thing, you know, that type of thing. So, yeah, back to, yeah, you've got to give them a place to call their foundation. This is where I start.
Well, you know, they've got this new housing first model.
Right.
Where they're supposed to house people off the streets first, no matter what they're under the influence of, and then work on helping them. Do you see any hope in that program?
I do. I saw it implemented down in San Diego when I was down there 3 or 4 years ago, and you know, they don't have 100% success off of it, but their success was over 50%. So it's a model that's dynamic. It's still in flux. You know, it still needs to be basically adjusted and stuff. But yes, that model worked. Is it going to work for everybody? No, but it works for a large percentage of individuals, that want to get their life back in order. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's better than making everybody jump through all these different bureaucratic hoops to get a voucher. And then, when you have a voucher, finding a place that will accept vouchers, and it's almost impossible. And not just in the small communities, in the larger communities, it's almost impossible, because carrying a voucher carries a stigma behind it, you know, that, yeah, you're going to get your rent paid, the landlord's going to get his rent paid on time, yeah, but the clientele that you have in your rental, you basically are, you know, taking a risk, because they're, you know, starting all over again, so they're susceptible to falling back into their abuses, backsliding. So yeah, it's a risk. I see it as a risk on the landlord side. Absolutely.
Well, there's talk of building housing, and the local agency has leveraged millions of dollars to do these programs. My question would be, I guess, if the money's not used right and these people are still left on the street, how do we address those issues?
Misappropriation of funds?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's got to be an oversight. That's got to be, you've got to have a committee that basically, when you build these programs, back to my humanitarian, you have to have people that sit on that board that are not worried about the bottom line. If you're worried about the bottom line, go and get in a Fortune 500 company. If that's what you love to do. You need to worry about the clients, taking care of him. And if it costs extra, then it costs extra. Absolutely.
Well, you know, in the capitalist society we live in, everything is about the bottom line.
You're right. And that's why we're destroying this planet. No doubt about it. Because we have to capitalize. You look at the word capital. It means gaining either monetary or minerals or whatever it is. It's capitalizing. Absolutely. So does that model work? It doesn't look like it to me. It's not working.
How would you fix something like that locally?
Back to my point, it's got to be community. You've got to get the whole community involved. A to Z. You're not going to do it through enforcement, and I'm repeating myself, but everybody's got to get involved, from the clergy to the grocery stores. Everybody's got to get involved because they all have a stake in this community. And if they want to fix the problem, then they have to get involved. Everybody has to have a little bit in fixing the problem. You can't just give it to one agency and say, well, we gave them $10,000, they're going to fix the problem. Well, instead of giving them $10,000, why don't you give them $5,000 and volunteer and be part of the solution? Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution.
So you're saying people need to be proactive?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I see a lot of communities that just think, well, that's a police problem. You know, all these homeless panhandling and stuff like that. We'll just call the police. Well, instead of that, why don't you get involved and say, okay, I understand why he's panhandling. Let me find out why he's still doing it. Why is he still there after the police came 100 times and gave him tickets? You know, it's one of those, you're not going to cure it through enforcement. Putting them in jail, that's just a revolving door. They'll be right back out and back to panhandling. So back to my premise is, get involved as a business owner or it's just a community citizen, part of the community.
Great. I believe that's all I have. Do you want to say anything else?
I don't know. What do we want to talk about?
We can talk about anything you want.
I'm pretty opinionated. If you get me, as you well know, you get me talking, and I'm pretty darn opinionated. Do I have the answers for everything? No. Will I get involved? Absolutely, I'll get involved. Will I help? Absolutely, I'll help.
Well, if you want, we could talk about cannabis.
Cannabis, yeah.
And we could talk about the stigma behind that one and
yeah,
reefer madness.
You're right. I grew up the coast, Humboldt County, and you know, I've been around pot my whole life. We used to come down here to Mendocino County because it was the best place to buy pot. You know, it really was, and it probably still is one of the better places in the world to buy cannabis. And a lot of businesses around here have made a lot of money off the cannabis business because the growers had so much money that they would pay cash for everything. Absolutely. And a lot of these businesses around here made a lot and a lot and a lot of money off of that. And the stigma behind it is, yeah, we'll take your money, but we don't want you around here. We like your money, but we don't like your business. Now that's changing. That's changing with the legalizing and the controlled growth, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, I listened to a couple of the county commissioner meetings about putting the regulations together, and the best analogy I heard was they're basically building a plane while it's flying through the air. So they don't know what they're doing. And there's a lot at stake here because you've got a lot of small growers, And if you look at what happened in Colorado when they legalized it there, it pretty much pushed all 90% of the small growers out of business. And now all you have in Colorado is these huge industry growers came in.
Well, you know they're trying to make that not happen here. And they're
Right.
trying to leave it open for small
Right,
growers.
and I applaud that. Absolutely, I applaud that because you know this is what this community is about. If we want to be self-sustaining, we have to support the small growers, the small farmers. You know, go to the farmers market and support those people. Spend your money there. These big corporation stores, they're going to make their money anyway. But these small farmers, they've got great crops. And not just cannabis, but I mean just vegetables and stuff like that. And back to your self-sustaining community, you've got to support those people. They're the ones that are building your community. That's absolutely the roots of your community right there.
Well, you realize that's a lot of the reason we're doing this. We got to shine light on this.
Absolutely, and I think what we have to do as a society is be able to come together, and everybody has to check their ego at the door and say, okay, I'm going to come in to this meeting with an open mind. And I always like to use that analogy of the open mind is the mind is like a parachute. It doesn't function unless it's open. So come into those meetings, check your ego at the door, and listen. Open your mind. Just, do some critical thinking. Think outside of the box. Ask questions. And I'm really encouraged because the new generation coming up, the youth, they're doing that. They're asking questions.
They are.
They're not going by the old paradigm. They're asking questions. But why are we doing it that way? Well, we've done it that way all the time. Well, it doesn't work. Why don't we change it? And the youth is doing that. There's a great movement.
And we should support them.
Absolutely. And it starts with community. Like I said, it starts with supporting your local farmers at the small, farmers markets, and going to the small ag community meetings. And even if you're not a farmer, go volunteer. There's plenty of community farms here that'll do work trade.
It sounds
I
like
do it. I
Sounds
work
like
on
you're
farms.
saying get involved. You live here.
Absolutely. Get involved in your community. Don't sit back and take pot shots at them. I mean, anybody can write an editorial in the paper and just laser somebody, with an editorial and just sit back and feel good. That's all that's doing is stroking your ego. Absolutely stroking your ego.
Right.
If you really do care about your community, get involved. Get involved in your community.
Thank you.
You bet.
With
Thank
that,
you.
I think we will.
All right.
Perfect place to end.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you, TJ.
Yeah.